Hey, it's the right weekend. And if you don't watch the news or you don't read stuff, there's always people talking about the Civil War, or, if we're in a cold Civil War, everything that's going on right now. Um, I was reading this article and I found it interesting. Um, uh, Leftist Sarah Silverman, she said this, and I'm gonna play it for you real quick. It's a little over a minute, a little under a minute, really. If it'll play now, of course, when I
But
wanted to play.
I mean, this may be a negative thought, but or maybe a positive one. I don't know. But if people aren't getting along, like in relationship, they break up. So like, why don't we just finally just realize that these states aren't working and like divide up into like 2 or 3 countries, like USA 1 and USA 2.
Here's my issue. I'm going to say it's not totally crazy. I think it's better than having a hot civil war. But I mean, of course, she goes on to be bombastic.
They can be USA 1. Like the conservatives can be USA 1 because they love being number one and it means something to them. And I'd love to have that be theirs. They can be USA 1, we'll be USA 2, and we'll be allies. And you'll come over here and we'll go over there. And, when you come to many times when you go to a different country, you have to get a vaccine.
So, of course, it's all about the whole thing with the vaccine. And it's going across this country. You got parts of Oregon that want to secede and become part of Idaho, making it, they call it the Greater Idaho. You have the northern part of California that wants to secede and become like the state of Jefferson. There's even parts of Northern California that want to become part of Idaho also, to make a bigger state of Idaho. Now, I don't have problems with any of these things. It wouldn't be needed if we actually follow the Constitution. Each state is actually supposed to be kind of their own country. The problem is we've granted so much authority to the federal government. That's kind of one of the reasons why we fight so much. That's why we bicker as states, because let's say, for example, federal gun laws. Okay, when you understand that, let's say, as Bernie Sanders said at one point, when he was actually before he went off the deep end and started, becoming he's always been a socialist, but he was a populist at one point and stopped being a populist and just went crazy lefty. Um, he said the gun issue in America is a rural versus urban issue. And that was exactly right. That's what goes on with the gun issue, is the fact that, when you live out in the middle of nowhere, you want your guns. When you live in a city, if you call the cops in New York, more or less, they're going to be there 5 to 10 minutes. They could be there 5 to 10 minutes. I live out in the middle of nowhere, and like the nearest police station is like at least a half an hour away from me. So, there's certain issues that we don't agree with, but the federal government wants to step in. If Illinois wants to pass strict gun laws, New York wants to pass strict gun laws, that's on New York. Leave it be. Stop trying to pass what you think is good for everyone to everyone. No, leave it to your New York and leave Texas alone with their gun laws. But that's not what goes on. You have federal overreach with a lot of, especially right now. Look, when it comes to stuff that we we agree that is disgusting, for the most part, we agree with that stuff. The stuff that we disagree with is where we, taxation, um, socialized healthcare, and all that stuff. That's stuff that, you know what, leave it to the states. If California and New York, they want to do, universal healthcare, let them do it. If it's a good idea, people will flock to their states. If it's a bad idea, people will leave the state. And people, oh, but what about the taxes? Everybody pays taxes. Here's the whole thing. If you limit the size of the federal government and you put them back onto what they were originally intended to be, we wouldn't need to spend so much money on the federal government. But um, we have stuff that the federal government wasn't created to do, but we did it. Like, let's say Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff. That's stuff that we've created those programs, those social safety nets. Now, if we agree with it, that's fine. Which, I'm okay with a social safety net. I just have problems with the way some of them are run. It's like, creating generational dependency on some of these programs. It's some of the problems. I know, growing up in New York, I know people who, 3, 4 generations of people, families on welfare. So if the government, excuse me, if the federal government was limited to its actual scope, then the states would be able to do what the states wanted to do. We wouldn't need, there wouldn't be so much bickering. If a state wants to do a state mandate, that's fine. But at the same time, you're gonna have to make exemptions, because let's say, for example, you have a trucker bringing stuff in from Texas. They don't have a mandate. He may not want a vaccine. Do you want the stuff that he's traveling with? Then you have to make that exemption. These products and stuff that come from other states, you're going to have to make exemptions. But that's the problem. They want, look, I don't have a problem with the vaccine. I'm vaccinated. I have a problem with the mandate. Anyway, I'm not going to make any comments about the vaccine because I don't want YouTube to give me a strike. But needless to say, now you're an anti-vaxxer if you against the mandate, even though I'm vaccinated. We wouldn't need a civil war if, like I said, it's all about the federal government. But the problem is, say, for example, that's why some people are talking about making red states redder and blue states bluer. But the problem with that is, if you have, here's the problem. If you get enough blue states, the blue states will, run roughshod on the red states for the most part. They'll try to pass all the stuff that they want. They'll try to push it onto the red states. If the red states, if they won, there's only one issue. Let's say they may try to run roughshod with. That would probably be abortion. That's it. Other than that, they're not gonna. If red, let's say if the majority of the Senate was Republican, they're not gonna go, oh, New York State, you can't pass your gun law. It's gonna, we're gonna mandate you to, we're gonna make it unconstitutional or something like that. Now the courts could decide that. That's a different story. And that's another way they legislate stuff. And it's different than, let's say, if you say, okay, it's illegal, and you try to say certain guns illegal in New York, but it's not illegal in like Texas or Wyoming, something like that. And that's how we have to look at this. If we could we don't need to break up as a country if we actually let the states do what the states are meant to do. If you don't like, let's say you don't like that Texas abortion law, leave. Vote with your feet. Don't stay there. How many people, and this is crazy, how many people move from California to a bunch of different states because you don't like the cost of living? The cost of living has become ridiculously high in California. Okay. But then they move to states where it's more affordable, but then they vote the same policies that made them leave California in the first place. So, like I said, the solution might be, instead of breaking up, might be, Democrats move to Democrat states, move to the blue states, Republicans move to red states, and go from there. Before we try to have before we try to break up, let's actually do things the way they were supposed to be, and for states to have more autonomy. But the fear is that we're going to have a situation like, pre-civil rights era, that you're going to have like white states or something like that, an ethno state. And no, for the most part, except for like a pocket of people, but there's, just like just like you have white supremacists, you have black supremacists. Okay. So you have those crazies on both sides, but they don't have no political power. So we could do bulk, instead of doing a complete, instead of having a civil war, we could just have, look, let in blue states you pass your laws, in red states let them pass their laws, and leave it at that. Let people vote with their feet. If you don't want to be there in let's say in California, it could be like, well, if you don't like our laws, we'll pay for you to leave. If you're a poor person and you can't afford to do it. Same thing, let's say in Texas, they were like, hey, if you don't like our laws, we'll help you guys move to blue state. It's not ideal, but I think it's better than us completely breaking apart. I think we lose our power in the world if we become, 2 or 3 different countries, as Silverman suggested. But then where do we go from here? Because that's the whole problem, is there's no, live or let live. It's like, believe what I believe, or you're, that's why I made the video, believe what I believe, or you're a white supremacist. Or, and that's the way it's working out right now. It's like, if you don't agree, they'll say, oh, you don't believe the vaccine works or climate change because you're anti-science. And these are the same people that go, well, a man could be a woman if he says he is. Who's living in a fantasy world look, there's certain people who it's real. Gender dysphoria is real, and it's horrible. But pushing this on children and all that stuff, that's why we need, states, and not to be one country. That's what's going on. That's why we want to push our we're going to push our beliefs on. That's a belief. It's not science. You're pushing beliefs, and then you go around, you institutionalizing it, and going, oh, look, well, this is peer reviewed by 10, 20 people who believe the same thing you do, and you ignored the other people. So, I mean, it's Friday night. What do you guys think? What some of the solutions you think to this situation we have? Because to me, I think it's a cold civil war that we're having right now, especially the fact that we're going through a cultural revolution right now. Who's going to win the whoever wins the cultural battle is the one who wins the civil war. All the people who in the 60s and 70s, they're older now and they believe, they've pushed society in a certain direction. The question is, will the culture shift with this coming cultural civil war? Well, cultural civil war that we're in. Where do we go from here? All right, well, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm the Right Rican. You can follow me on YouTube and Rumble. You can interact with me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram. All right. Well, with that being said, have a good weekend, everyone.